Hello everyone, welcome to this first session in the To The Limit series. Wow, I'll give yourself a proper introduction shortly. This To The Limit series is going to be an absolute cracker. So if you're looking for hard workout, it's going to help bump up that FTP. You come to the right place. My name is Rich. I'm the founder and head coach at RIAK Fitness. We've been running these sessions for quite some time now, and this is our newest and potentially toughest series. Some really great workouts as part of this series. So let's get stuck in, shall we? 3, 2, 1. We'll just start off with a pretty steady warm-up. We've got a great session, great introduction to how this series is going to work, how it's going to be focused. Starting off though with a nice 10-minute warm-up. Every 2 minutes the power is going to increase by about 6 to 10 watts, and you'll see I've got my trainer set very low, mainly so I can be able to talk and help you and lead you through this session. So this To The Limit series, what's it about? Well, basically, we're taking you to the limit of your aerobic capacity. So the limit of your ability to take in oxygen effectively. And so we're kind of hitting two things really. Firstly, that FTP, that functional threshold power, which I'll explain a little bit more about shortly, but also your VO2 max, which ultimately is kind of that final frontier before you start to work purely anaerobically, or predominantly anaerobically, I should say. So that's kind of what these sessions are about. They're essentially mixed threshold and VO2 max sessions, and we are going to throw in a little bit of anaerobic work in there for good measure, but they're basically a very good use of your time. If you don't have the time in your week to do kind of standalone sort of VO2 max and anaerobic sets, these sessions are going to kind of cover off a lot of that stuff. So these sessions are absolutely perfect for those people that perhaps have limited time, only maybe have time for one structured high intensity session a week. Because these sessions are going to kind of cover a lot of what you need to do basically. Okay, this first session is a really good introduction to that. So it's largely threshold focused. So the first, I'll talk you through the session right from the start. So we've got this 10-minute build that we're on at the moment, stepping up every 2 minutes. We then got the fast pedaling efforts, which have a little bit of a twist to our normal kind of approach, which I'll tell you about shortly. We then got a nice cruising section where we can just kind of get settled, make sure we're kind of got everything where we need to be, get the fluids on board, etc., have a little chat. And then we get into the first interval, the first block. So the first two are at FTP, at 100% of FTP, and they're 6 minutes long. Okay, those are the first two intervals, and then we start to step up with the second two intervals. So the third one is at about 105% of FTP, and that's 5 minutes long. And then the final interval of the session is 4 minutes, and it's about 110% of FTP. So you basically got a little bit of a stepped build. And the purpose behind this is one of the things that we want to kind of teach you guys as part of the series is to develop the ability to kind of step up whilst you're already on the limit. Okay, that's a part of what we're looking to achieve with this series. So fantastic, really, pretty much for any rider, you know, in terms of having it as the focus of their week and their structured session. This is an absolutely fantastic series for that. But in particular, those that are kind of into their e-racing or with their bike racing full stop. These sessions are going to really help you kind of step up to that kind of anaerobic stuff whilst you're already kind of working hard, basically. That's going to be the focus. For now though, we're just cruising. We're in zone, what we call zone 2, at around, where are we now? About 64% of FTP. Okay, so let's just start to get focused. Keep the fluids coming on boards. Okay, it does help you wake up. Being hydrated is extremely important. So make sure we get the fluids on board as we get ready for this session. But let's just start taking notice of our leg speed. We want it to be upwards of 80 RPM right now, our cadence. So I use the terms cadence, leg speed interchangeably, just basically how quickly your legs are turning over. So if you've got a cadence meter, you want that number to be upwards of 80. Unhelpfully, my cadence meter isn't. To be honest, I never, when I do these sessions, I never put up my cadence and my heart rate, and it's purely so that I can take it pretty easy. We do a number of these sessions trying to hide how hard I'm working effectively. Okay, so we're coming up towards the penultimate step of the warm-up, and then we're going to get to those fast pedaling efforts. And as I said, there's a little bit of a twist to the normal approach that if you've done these sessions, any of our sessions before. So these fast pedaling efforts are just 2 of them this time, but they're broken up. Okay, so the first 30 seconds is going to be at around 80% of FTP, and then the second 30 seconds is going to be at sort of VO2 max level, so you're going to have to really crank it up, okay? And whilst all the way through that, we want your leg speed to be upwards of 100 RPM, so really turning those legs over. If you've not done any of our sessions before, the purpose of the fast pedaling efforts are basically to switch your legs on, get your fast twitch muscle fibers firing. That's quite a hard sentence to say. Yeah, and just basically really getting your legs going, so that you're ready for the high intensity intervals to come. For now though, as I said, we're looking for upwards of about 80 RPM for now, until we get to the end of the warm-up, and then we're going to get stuck into those fast pedaling efforts. We then got a little cruise period where I'm just going to talk a little bit about what your FTP is and what your VO2 max is, just so that you kind of have that key information to mind, so as you're going through this series, so you know really kind of what you're working on. But it's all good stuff basically. So keep the fluids coming on, and let's get ready. Just a quick reminder to anybody watching these sessions live, these sessions are intended to be interactive, albeit we totally appreciate they're not going to be as interactive as our Monday sessions, which are low intensity. But just remember guys, if you're on the Zoom feed, you're very welcome to unmute yourself at any point, ask any questions, or you can use the Zoom chat. For those on RGT, you can use the RGT feed, the RGT chat, sorry. And then of course, we do live stream these sessions as well. So anybody on our social channels or the V Cycling news channels, you can post your comments and ask questions on the live stream, and we'll staying across those as well. But we totally get that you might not be super chatty in these sessions because you're going to be working hard for most of it anyway. So right, I'll just make sure I've got the feeds up so I can. Okay, right, so we're on to the final step of the warm-up. Leg speed upwards of 80 RPM, remember, at least 85 I would say by now. And hopefully getting a bit of a blow on, getting a bit of a sweat on, and just generally getting ready to get stuck in. So just about a minute left before we hit the first of the fast pedaling efforts. And just remember there's two sections to those fast pedaling efforts. First 30 is at 80% of FTP, second 30 we're up to sort of a VO2 max level, working hard, but ultimately our focus for all of that minute is on our really high leg speed. Okay, 40 seconds till we get stuck in. So just try and stay relaxed. Throughout this series and throughout the session, you'll get constant reminders by us to relax. And what we're talking about there is just softening the elbows, drawing the shoulders away from the ears, just planting the bum on the saddle. And that's just going to help keep your upper body steady and give yourself a good foundation for pedaling, which we're going to need in 3, 2, 1. So here we go, up to around 80% of FTP. But as you see, the cadence target's gone up to 105. So we want to be above 100 RPM. This is a erg mode session, so keep erg mode on, so you shouldn't have to think about anything other than just pedaling hard and pedaling fast. So 10 more seconds, and then the power is going to ramp up. And with it, I want you to ramp up your leg speed, your cadence. In 3, 2, 1. Okay, so ramp up the leg speed as well. Really pick it up. You've got a target now of 115 RPM, which means really relaxing the shoulders and the elbows. Okay, relax the upper body, otherwise you're going to start to bounce. If you're bouncing, just relax. It'll help plant your bum on the saddle. Just another 10 seconds. Keep it going. Last couple seconds. Okay, and relax. Okay, so that's your first experience of these stepped fast pedaling efforts. We've got a second one coming our way. You know the drill now. And then we've got a lovely little cruise section which you can relax through a little bit before we get stuck into the proper hard work. It's nice and relaxed. Another 20, and we're back into that fast pedaling effort. Okay, here we go then. Second fast pedaling effort, so up to a tempo level. 80% of FTP, spinning up those legs, well over 100 RPM now. Staying relaxed though, keeping the bum planted, getting ready for that power to feed in 10 seconds time. Get ready for it, guys. 3, 2, 1. Okay, power's gonna feed in, let's go with it, come on. Speed up those legs. Soften the elbows, remember, keep that bum planted. Last 10 seconds. Nearly there, keep it going. 3, 2, 1, and relax. Okay, well done. So just one last point on the fast pedaling efforts, and this is a point to kind of remember throughout the session and throughout the series. So one of the reasons we're always talking about staying relaxed is, if you think about it, when your arms are kind of locked out like this, and I see it a lot, riders kind of riding like this, when you start to bounce up and down, even a little bit, that's wasted energy really, if you think about it, because what you want really is a nice solid base that you're sitting on for those legs to work off. So a lot of the time actually people lock out their arms like this because they're really uncomfortable in the saddle and because their bike fit isn't right, basically. So if you find yourself doing that all the time and you're just kind of really reluctant to sit back on the saddle and put your full weight on the saddle, you might want to have a little think about your bike fit. It's one of our top recommendations in terms of investments before purchasing any fancy kit. Get yourself a good bike fit. Honestly, make a huge difference to your training if you're comfortable and able to train more consistently, because you're not dreading being uncomfortable. But then also, you know, when you're bouncing up and down, that's wasted energy, because the way you're bouncing up and down is by effectively lifting yourself off the saddle. Okay, and so when you're bouncing up and down, not all of your power is going down through the pedals in order to, you know, rotate the cranks. It's part of it is used to kind of bounce you up and down, and that's not what we want. We want to be nice and firmly planted on the saddle, with the legs only really kind of pushing us forwards, only really pressing down on those pedals for the sake of making you move forwards. So there you go. That's everything I think you need to know about staying relaxed on the bike. And this is important because we've got some steady state intervals in this session where, you know, you're effectively time trialing. You're in time trialing kind of mode, trying to hold power, try and keep it consistent. And you know, time trialing is all about being relaxed. Okay. And so that's why I'm kind of labouring the point a little bit. Anyway, so coming back, I probably should talk about FTP. So functional threshold power. I think the first thing to say is, for a real kind of in-depth kind of explanation of what functional threshold power is, how you test for it, and kind of some of the key information as to why it's important and why you want to train it. There's an article. There's a brilliant article. Well, probably shouldn't say that because I wrote it. There's an article on our website about functional threshold power. Okay, so have a look on that. Go to the training articles section on our website. It's not a super exciting read, but I'd say it's probably pretty crucial reading for anybody that's training to power. Okay, just understanding exactly what your FTP actually is. So I think a lot of people kind of know it as a metric of fitness, but don't necessarily understand kind of why it matters. And I think that is important, because if you kind of know what you're seeking to achieve when it comes to fitness in terms of increasing your FTP, it can just help you sort of structure your training a little bit more sensibly. Okay, it's not just about doing these high intensity sessions. A big part of it is also that long, low intensity base mileage. And as I say in that article, there's kind of two main factors feeding into your FTP. This kind of strength work, high intensity strength type work, and then that long, low intensity endurance mileage. Okay, so that's FTP, VO2 max. If you're not familiar with that phrase, or you've heard it but you're not sure what it means, it's basically, it's the maximum volume of oxygen your body can process at any one time. Okay, so once you go beyond your VO2 max power, you're working pretty much predominantly, if not almost entirely, anaerobically. Okay, so you stop being able to consume enough oxygen to buffer the buildup of lactate and hydrogen ions in your muscles. Okay, and that really is what your FTP is, your aerobic threshold. Your VO2 max is the maximum volume of oxygen you can take in, but your FTP is kind of a tipping point at which you start to slide from working aerobically to more and more anaerobically. Okay, because you stop being able to consume enough oxygen to kind of hold off that tipping point. And ultimately, training your FTP is about kind of raising that tipping point. Whilst your VO2 max might stay relatively constant in terms of literal volume, your FTP and your VO2 power should increase as you lift that aerobic ceiling. Hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. As I say, there's an article which hopefully will clarify a little bit more. But let's start getting focused on kind of the job in hand. Okay, we've got about 20 odd seconds before we hit the first threshold interval. So remember, this is 6 minutes long. Okay, 6 minutes long at 100% of FTP, and then you've got 4 minutes of recovery in between each interval. So let's get ready. Let's pick up the leg speed. Let's get it above 90 RPM. And let's get ready for the power to feed in. Here we go. Okay. So that power's going to feed in. Don't let your leg speed drop. Keep it above 90 RPM at the very least. Okay, that is your target through the whole session. Keeping your cadence above 90 RPM. Okay, obviously in the recovery intervals, you can let it drop a little bit. But through the work intervals, let's keep that leg speed nice and high, okay? And this is your first reminder. One now we're kind of should be up to power, should be up to speed. First reminder to relax. Plant that bum on the saddle. In terms of positioning on the bike, you've got various, if you want to go into full time trial mode, you can get down on the drops, or if you're on a TT bike on the aerob bar is always a really good idea that whenever you're doing your structured training on the turbo, if you do have a requirement to ride in an aero position, that you train that position and you get used to working at intensity in that aerodynamic position. Okay. So down the drops or the aero bars, if you want to train that position, you can also lie on top of the hoods, which is another really aerodynamic position. Or if you're just training here for some conditioning, I often put my hands in the middle of the bars, because what this does, pushes me back on the saddle, gets my glutes involved, and allows me just to get a little bit extra power out. So coming up towards 2 minutes down. There we go, already a third of the way through this first interval. Keep remembering to relaxing. It's not something that you can just do indefinitely. You have to keep constantly reminding yourself. You do get better at staying relaxed, but it's not, you will just find that steadily the shoulders creep up. You have to keep telling them to get back down and keep softening the elbows. Just do your best. Okay. Approaching halfway, keeping it going, keeping it steady. Okay, well done guys, you're over halfway. Just keeping it nice and steady. Just over 2.5 minutes to go. Okay, another little reminder to relax. Remember our leg speed wise, our cadence, we want it to be well above 90 RPM. So try and keep that consistent. Should be pretty much your primary focus. If you're running this in erg mode, you don't have to worry about the power. You just got to work hard and you'll hit that power. But your leg speed is something you're going to have to control, something you're going to have to be disciplined with. So get that cadence upwards of 90 and try and keep it consistent. Because every time you slow down, allow the leg speed to slow down, and then you have to get out the saddle and pick it back up. Every time you're doing that, that's extra energy you're having to waste, which you might get away with now as you're fresh, but towards the end of the session, that's going to start to bite. Okay, so make sure you're keeping your leg speed as consistent as possible. You don't want to turn you into too much of a robot. The more energy you can save now, the more you'll have towards the end of the session. And I promise you, this session will start to bite towards the end. So keep that leg speed consistent. into the last minute. Stay strong, stay focused. You're nearly there. Last 25, you're so close now. Just keep it consistent, keep it going, and stay relaxed for that final 20 odd seconds. Nearly there. Last few. And relax, well done. Okay, that's round one done. So you can relax the leg speed a little bit, or at least be a little bit less disciplined on it, but try to keep it above 80 RPM. We still want to be pedaling efficiently. So that's the one top tip whenever you're in a recovery interval, guys. Try to make sure you're pedaling efficiently. You're not down at sort of 50, 60 RPM, particularly if you're doing a session in erg mode, because what will happen is, and this is where I come onto my erg mode chat, what happens is that flywheel on the trainer will start to slow down. And so if you're at 50, 60 RPM, you're actually kind of putting out more power per pedal stroke than you perhaps should be. Whereas you're sitting at 80 comfortably, just sort of spinning over, you're putting out less power per pedal stroke to meet the sort of smoothing, the target. Okay, and you'll just basically recover more quickly, is the point I'm trying to make. So pedaling more efficiently means you'll recover more quickly. So when you're in the recovery intervals, obviously gather yourself, you know, you're not, as I say, we're not trying to make you into a robot, but once you have gathered yourself, pick it back up, get it back above 80 RPM, and just start pedaling more efficiently again. And I promise you, it will help you recover a little bit faster. Okay, so well done. So erg mode, you'll hear us talking a lot about that in, well, maybe not a lot, but fairly frequently. And we do run sessions, we will be running sessions with erg mode turned off. So this is for anybody with a smart trainer basically, or a smart bike. Erg mode is kind of often the default setting. It basically means, a fantastic conditioning tool that allows you to hit a specific power and hold it. Okay, again, we've actually got an article, an in-depth article on erg mode, which explains in more depth and kind of when it's appropriate to use and when it's best to turn it off. But erg mode, basically what it does is it sets your trainer so that the flywheel wants to spin at a certain velocity, and will set the usually magnets in a smart trainer to set the resistance at a specific level. So basically it means that you have to hit a certain power and keep the flywheel spinning at a certain velocity. And that's why I was saying earlier that if you're in the recovery interval and you're down at sort of 50, 60 RPM, that flywheel has slowed down and lost momentum, and it will actually feel heavier than it should be. And really that flywheel wants to spin at a velocity where that kind of equates to you riding about 85, 90 RPM. And so just to kind of illustrate that further, right now in this recovery interval, you were to spin your legs up, you know, upwards of 100 RPM, and you're in erg mode, you'd feel it go super light. Okay, and that's because it'll have the power set at a very specific, the resistance set at a specific level. And you can see actually my workout's just paused because it now needs to spin down a little bit, and so you might find that happens. So that's erg mode. Okay, as I say, there's another article on that which talks you through what it is, how it's useful, when and when not to use it. Okay, and as I say, we'll be doing sessions where we will actually be turning it off, which you can do in RGT. Nothing to worry about now, just steady as she goes, not going to mess around with anything now. But what we are going to do is we're going to start getting ready for the next interval. So we've got 20 seconds till we get there, so make sure that leg speed is above 80 RPM as we get ready to go for round two. So back to 100% of FTP. This effort when we get there should feel like an 8 out of 10 effort, 10 being a full-on sprint. So here we go, pick up the leg speed, let's get back above 90 RPM. Let's really kind of get stuck into this one. Above 90 RPM, and then we start to relax as soon as we're up to power, as soon as we're up to leg speed. And we just get settled into it. So top tip when it comes to kind of longer steady state intervals, break it up in your mind. So with this one, it will break up nice and cleanly, either into thirds, or you can break it up into 2-3 minute sectors. Really does help, guys, with the old motivation, rather than just seeing one big block of hard work ahead of you. Break it up into little sectors and just tick them off as you go. So let's break it up into 2 minute sectors. So we're coming almost halfway through the first sector, and just use that to kind of motivate yourself and not look too far ahead. So remember, if you've got any kind of time trialing ambitions, let's try and test out that aero position down on the drops, lying on the hoods, aero bars, or whatever. Well done. So 30 seconds and then we're already through the first 2 minute sector. So nice and steady. Remember what I was saying earlier about keeping leg speed consistent. It's important now, and it will benefit you towards the end of the session. If you're not constantly having to get out the saddle to speed back up. One of the downsides of training with erg mode is it does make sessions a little bit less dynamic sometimes. And so some of the tips that we're giving you are just a couple of the ways you can deal with that kind of that steady state, aggressively steady state effort. But we're already into the second sector, coming up on halfway through the interval already, okay? So just keep it nice and relaxed again, drop the shoulders, soften the elbows, keep that leg speed nice and high. Well done, over halfway. Already encroaching upon the final 2 minute sector of this interval. So just stay strong, stay focused, not too far to go. Okay, here we are then, into the final 2 minute sector. Last little push, and then we're back down to a recovery state, so stay with it, stay strong. Just missed my bottle case there. I think that's the first time I've ever done that on a session, which is surprising because I am remarkably clumsy. Okay, coming up onto the final minute. Here we are, last 60 seconds. Stay strong, stay focused and stay relaxed. Remember, draw those shoulders away from the ears. And let's just finish this off with good form. Okay, approaching the last 30. You're nearly there. Stay with it. Okay, 20 to go. Last little push, final few seconds. Hey, well done and relax, well done. So just remember, just take a few seconds to gather yourself. And then once you've done that, bring that leg speed back above 80 RPM. You've got a lovely 4 minutes of pure recovery. So if you are into your data, if you use platforms like Training Peaks, you might be interested to know what the TSS is. You can see the TSS at the kind of top right hand side of your RGT screen. Obviously mine's super low because I'm training well below threshold, but yours will be creeping up rapidly. So TSS, training stress score, is what it means. It's basically an attempt to quantify the workload of the session. Okay, it's a combination of intensity and duration. And as I say, it's an attempt to quantify basically the effort that you've done. And we're working for this session, all things being well, you should be taking away 65 TSS with you. Okay, and in these sessions, we will each week steadily increase that TSS until we're upwards of 75 TSS. Okay, so you can see there's a long way to go, but as the intention is that it's a progressive series and we get there together basically. Okay, so this session is the starting point. So don't get me wrong, it still should feel like a tough session there. This is not my way of saying this is an easy set and you should find that. It's not. This is still a challenging session, but my point is, if you're consistent and you do these sessions each week alongside some good base training, some good low intensity training like we talk about in that FTP article, you know, you're going to be able to manage that step up in TSS each week as your fitness is, as your strength grows. And then ultimately at the end of the series, you do all the sessions alongside some good base training, you should be ready for an FTP test. And then you basically start the process again. And suddenly 65 TSS with an increased FTP feels hard again. So that's kind of just one way of thinking about it. So, okay, so this is a progressive series. Try and be consistent. Okay, so we're coming up to about a minute to go. So this next set, remember, we're starting to increase the work. So we're starting to increase the effort. We're going up to 105% of FTP, but we're slashing a minute off the interval. Okay, so just be prepared for that one. So break it into half, break it into 2.5 minute sectors. But just be prepared for that increase in power and don't let it drag your cadence down. Okay, we want to still be well above 90 RPM when we get into this interval, but just be ready for it. Let's get ready to do battle. 30 odd seconds. Get ready. So if you allowed yourself to relax a little bit too much and your leg speed is below 80, get it back above 80. You've got 20 seconds before we start to feed back the power back in. Okay, 10. Okay, 3 seconds, let's go. Let's get ready for it. Come on then. back up to around threshold, so we're up to 105% of FTP for this interval. So make sure you get that leg speed nice and high, well above 90 RPM, and let's just look to get up to power, up to speed, and then relax as we have done in the previous intervals. Okay, well done. Coming up towards the first minute down. Staying relaxed, remember. So this is when that relaxation starts to become really important. It's very hard to do when you're working hard, I'm very conscious of that. But just by lowering your shoulders away, if you just kind of take your arms straight and then soften them, you will feel extra pressure on your sit bones. That's basically sitting down more firmly on the saddle, and that's going to help you produce power, or at least make sure the power is going where it needs to go. Okay, you're nearly halfway through this interval already. Less than 30 seconds and then we're into the second sector of this interval. Okay, you're halfway through, you're into that second sector now. Coming up on the last 2 minutes. You can do this. Last 2 minutes, and then you've got a lovely recovery again. Stay focused, keep that leg speed up above 90 RPM. Remember, this is really important now as we're into the kind of final throes of the session. Definitely want to make sure that leg speed is nice and consistent. Don't want to slow down and speed up all the time. This is when it gets really hard to do so. Approaching the last minute. Here we go, 60 seconds, last push then. Come on, get that leg speed back above 90 if it's been dropping. Let's finish this off. Just around 45 seconds to go. Less than 30. Final few seconds coming up. Come on, last little push, last little nudge to the finish. And then lovely, 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 lovely recovery. Yes, and relax, well done. Well done. Remember the process. Gather yourself and then bring the leg speed back up above 80 so you're pedaling nice and efficiently. I've just got one last interval left of the session, and then that's session 1 of the To The Limit series done. Okay, so this last interval was a toughie though. All right, we're slashing another minute off, so we're down to 4 minutes at FTP. Sorry, 110% of FTP. So it's just 4 minutes, but the work. Yeah. So staying nice and relaxed. Bringing that leg speed back up, back above 80. Getting ready to go. Okay, fluids on board. Important to, whenever you're in the recovery intervals, to try and get the fluids back on board. Okay, in other sessions in particular, we've actually done a Monday assembly session where we talked specifically about hydration, why it's so important. So recommend having a watch of that. All our sessions that we refer to can be accessed from our website as on-demand content. Okay, and in particular, we're all about knowledge, about imparting knowledge. So there's some really useful cycle seminars and Monday assembly rides on our website, where you can learn a huge amount. Because ultimately our goal is to try and help you guys become your own coaches. Terrible business model, but it's kind of what we enjoy, rather than just sort of shouting at people. We want people to learn stuff, and all that knowledge is on our website in the form of training articles, on-demand content, some of which you have to pay for, some of which is very free. So have a look on our website, have a dig through. I promise you there'll be something there for you. For now though, let's just keep our eye on the session. Got 20 odd seconds before we get going for that big final effort. 4 minutes long, but we're up to 110% of FTP. Okay, so we're getting onto the cusp of what we call zone 5, or just breaching into zone 5, and that's where your VO2 max power can be found. Okay, here we go then, come on. Right, pick that leg speed right up, get it well above 90 RPM. We want to be closer to 100 RPM through this interval, and let's just drive our way straight through it. Okay, 2 minute sectors on this one. Just break it in half, and let's just smash our way through it. Okay, keeping that leg speed nice and high throughout. This interval is where it's going to be at its hardest to keep that leg speed high as you start to fatigue. And it's super important you battle to keep the leg speed high, otherwise that flywheel will slow down and you'll start doing all this out the saddle, 50, 60 RPM, struggling to get to the end. So battle to keep your leg speed high now, and it will get you through. That's the first minute down. Come on, push, you can do this. Remember, relax. Just pull those shoulders away from the ears, soften the elbows, plant the bum on the saddle, give a foundation for the legs to do the hard work. Approaching halfway. Come on, you're so close now, don't give up. Keep driving, keep pushing. Two minutes to go. God, you're so close to the finish now. Right, last 90 seconds. Come on, you're into the final push of the session. It's just the cool down after this. Coming up on the last minute, last push. Come on, take it all the way to the line. Nice high leg speed, nice and relaxed. Let's do this perfectly. Okay, let's finish how we want to. Okay, you're nearly there. Approaching the last 30 seconds. This is it. This is the final effort. This is the final push to the finish. Nearly there now, nearly there. Approaching the last 10 seconds. Three, two, one, and relax. Well done. Okay, good job. Straight into the cool down now. Just chill out. Really well done. Okay. Really well done. So that's 65 TSS in the bag. Now just take your time with the cool down. We've got a 3-minute cool down. Ideally, we'd make it longer. But I know from experience, getting people to do more than 3 minutes on a cool down, their mind starts to drift. They start to think about food quite justifiably. But just try and take the cool down. Always trying to have a cool down. The purpose of it is just to help flush out and recycle some of the lactate accumulated in your legs. Just helps to bring your heart rate down a little bit more steadily. Okay, and will actually assist with your recovery a bit. So make sure also after every session you have a good old stretch. If you're after a stretch routine, you can actually again find that in our online training resources on the website. We've got a couple of really good stretch routines, and in particular there's one specifically for after a turbo session. Really important. Stretching so key because yes, it doesn't actually help with muscular recovery, or at least there's no strong evidence for that, but what it does do is prevent injuries, or help to prevent injuries, and it will just help you kind of relax after a session, because we've always got one eye on consistency, whereas if you're still stiff, achy from the previous set, you're not going to want to train again. So really important, particularly if you're training in quick succession, to make sure that you get the old stretches in. Get a nice high protein meal in as well, and rehydrate. Okay, we again have a specific Monday assembly session where we talked about post-session recovery, so you can find that if you really want to learn more and kind of nail on good habits. For now though, just enjoy the final 30 odd seconds of the session, just cooling down, getting the fluids back on board, and generally taking a well-earned rest. So really well done. That's 65 TSS in the bag. That's session 1 of our To The Limit series, where we're taking you to the limit of your aerobic capacity and beyond, in the hopes of lifting that FTP, giving it a good old kick up the ass. So last few seconds. If anyone's got any questions, I'll stick around and field those. You've got the Zoom chat, you've got the RGT chat, And of course, you've got all the comment sections on the various social media channels that we're streaming to. But otherwise, guys, that's your set. Really well done. And I hope you guys all got something out of that. Unless there are any final questions, I will call it a day on the live stream. But really well done, guys. That's session 1 of our To The Limit series, and we look forward to seeing you same time next week. Well done, everyone.